His killings were so sadistic and brutal that even experienced detectives were shocked.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the 20 most terrifying people throughout history.
The eyes, lupine eyes, eyes that were able to bore into the center of your soul.
Number 20, the Zodiac Killer.
I shall no longer announce to anyone when I commit my murders. They shall look like routine robberies, killings of anger, and a few fake accidents, etc. The police shall never catch me because I have been too clever for them.
Kicking off our list is the Phantom who taunted the San Francisco Bay Area in the late 1960s. While his confirmed body count is lower than others on this list, the Zodiac is terrifying because he treated murder like a game, and he knew that he was winning. He sent complex cryptograms to newspapers, threatened to shoot children on school buses, and famously wore a hooded executioner's costume during one of his attacks at Lake Berryessa. But perhaps scariest of all, the Zodiac technically won his depraved game. He was never caught, and his identity remains an unresolved question mark in the annals of American true crime. The Zodiac essentially proved that you could taunt the police, terrorize a populace, kill people, and completely get away with it.
I can't prove this. Just because you can't prove it doesn't mean it's not true. Easy, Dirty Harry. Finish the book.
Number 19, Gilles de Rais.
Gilles de Rais, Marshal of France. Formidable to men, fascinating to women, feared by all.
Few figures have plummeted from such heights to such depraved depths. In the 15th century, Gilles de Rais fought valiantly alongside Joan of Arc and became a national hero. But behind his castle walls, he was a monster. De Rais is believed to have kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered hundreds of children to satisfy his twisted occult obsessions. The contrast between his public image as a holy warrior of France and his private reality as a prolific child murderer is deeply disturbing. He serves as a grim historical reminder that monsters often hide in plain sight, and sometimes they wear the armor of a savior. He is also often cited as the true inspiration for the Bluebeard fairy tale, proving that history is often far scarier than fiction.
You would be perfect to sit on my throne. So perfect that you might like it too much and therefore disturb my fragile peace of mind.
Number 18, Ivan the Terrible.
Ivan was by far the most bloodthirsty ruler that country has had to endure.
Also known as Ivan the Terrible, he tears his enemies limb from limb and feeds them to the dogs.
Earning the moniker the Terrible requires more than just a bad temper. The first Tsar of Russia was a man consumed by extreme paranoia and uncontrollable rage, seeing enemies in every shadow. He famously beat his pregnant daughter-in-law and caused her to miscarry, and then bludgeoned his own son and heir to death with a staff. And beyond his grotesque domestic violence, he also created the Oprichnina, a terrifying secret police force that rode with the symbol of a dog's head on their saddles to sniff out treason. But they wouldn't just find dissenters. They would boil, roast, and massacre anyone Ivan suspected of disloyalty. His reign established a bloody legacy of state terror, proving that the most dangerous person in the country could be the very man sworn to protect it.
After 6 weeks of siege, the Novgorod was really burned down.
10,000 would die. It takes hundreds of years after he had ordered the death of so many that he acquires the title Ivan the Terrible.
Number 17, Jack the Ripper.
The violent story of the Ripper is so shrouded in myth that outlandish theories still surface, making it hard to separate facts from fiction.
He is the phantom that gave birth to the modern age of fear and the modern conception of the serial killer. Terrorizing London's Whitechapel district in 1888, Jack the Ripper didn't just kill. He viciously mutilated his victims in the open streets. The resulting scenes were of absolute horror and shocking gore. The sheer audacity of the crimes, combined with the bloody "From Hell" letter sent to George Lusk, sparked a media panic that defined the era. And like the Zodiac after him, Jack's identity remains a complete mystery, as he was never caught. He was and remains the ultimate boogeyman of the Victorian age, a man prowling the dark and seedy streets and butchering the women who caught his psychotic eye.
Please forgive me for the implication that I'm praising it, but it was Jack's masterpiece. Having done what he did in that room, I think that he could certainly take a break.
Number 16, Idi Amin.
The former military ruler, President Idi Amin, said Uganda's Asians, brought to the country by the British, were depriving black Africans of opportunities, and gave Asians who held British passports 90 days to leave the country or face being put in concentration camps.
Known as the Butcher of Uganda, Idi Amin was a dictator who presented a terrifying paradox of joviality and genocide. Standing a physically imposing 6'4", Amin expelled 80,000 Asians from his country and presided over the slaughter of up to 500,000 Ugandans. His erratic behavior fueled terrifying rumors that he practiced cannibalism and kept the severed heads of enemies to have conversations with them. Of course, the veracity of this has been disputed. Amin showed the world that a leader could be dismissed as a buffoon internationally while still running a slaughterhouse at home. His regime was a chaotic blend of absurdity and atrocity. That unpredictable and charismatic power is often the most dangerous kind of all.
Because I had to flee the country in the darkness of the night with my wife and children because my life was threatened. I came to know that I was on his hit list, and I would have been bumped off had I stayed much longer in the country.
Number 15, Richard Ramirez.
Why did you kill those people?
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer that at this time.
While some killers hide in the shadows, the Night Stalker revealed his own demonic image. Terrorizing Los Angeles in the mid-1980s, Ramirez had no specific pattern. He attacked men, women, and children alike, breaking into any random house that caught his eye that night. With his rotting teeth, weird satanic ramblings, and lack of hygiene, he was a bizarre movie slasher come to life. In court, Ramirez famously drew a pentagram on his hand, flashed it to the cameras, and yelled, "Hail Satan," further adding to the legend of his barbarism. Because his crimes were entirely opportunistic, he made an entire city afraid to sleep. In the end, Ramirez murdered at least 15 people, embodying the primal fear that we all share, that of the intruder in the night.
Richard Ramirez's whole trip was to hide in a tree or hide behind a fence and watch his victims at nighttime and wait into the wee hours of the night. And then, while they slept, creep in, like a coward, and kill them.
Number 14, Vlad the Impaler.
The story goes that Romania's bottomless well of tyranny, catastrophe, and overall human misery can all be traced back to one terrifying ruler and his supernatural evil.
Long before he inspired the legend of Dracula, Vlad III was crafting a legacy of very real horror. This 15th century prince defended Wallachia by turning his enemies into a literal forest of rotting corpses. No, seriously, he made a forest of rotting corpses. As per his name, Vlad's trademark was impalement, driving a greased stake through the body and avoiding vital organs, ensuring that the victim remained alive and suffering for days. He once displayed 20,000 impaled bodies to scare off an invading Ottoman army. It worked perfectly. The Sultan witnessed the surreal carnage and retreated in sheer horror. Vlad demonstrated that cruelty could in fact be used as a strategic military asset, and his methods were so gruesome that he remains synonymous with bloodlust centuries after his death.
So one of his tactics was to capture prisoners and then impale them. It's a wooden stick that goes into the rectum.
Gross.
Number 13, Ed Kemper.
Now, would you get in the car with this man? Huh? The state has made me much more credible as a human being.
This killer is basically Satan come to earth. He stands a gigantic 6'9", making him incredibly imposing. He also has a genius IQ, because of course he does. And not only that, but he was also known for being polite and articulate, and even befriended the police officers who were actively hunting him. But behind that friendly mask was a monster. Kemper became known as the co-ed killer after butchering a number of college students and engaging in horrific acts with their bodies. The horror culminated when he murdered his own mother, decapitated her, and then used her head as a dartboard. He then turned himself into the police, claiming, essentially, that he was tired of killing. You wouldn't know it with that friendly facade, but Kemper is evil incarnate.
She said for 7 years, she said, I haven't had sex with a man because of you, my murderous son. So I got a claw hammer and I beat her to death. Then I cut her head off.
Number 12, Attila the Hun.
Attila the Hun stands as one of the most ruthless, if not the most ruthless, military leaders of all time.
To the Romans, Attila the Hun was a form of divine punishment. Throughout the 5th century, Attila didn't just conquer cities, he erased them from the map entirely, razing buildings and slaughtering the inhabitants. And he commanded his forces with such an intensity and ferocity that people, especially his victims, believed that the apocalypse had arrived. Roman accounts depicted the Huns as savages who ate raw meat that was warmed under their saddles, and it was said that Attila never laughed. And while he likely never said it himself, later legends attribute a famous quote to him that basically sums up the terror. It says, quote, "Where my horse treads, the grass never grows again."
Attila's greatest weapon are his people and the way they fight and their novelty and the terror they instill.
Number 11, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Tired of everyone leaving me. I'm just gonna make him a zombie.
Many people are called the neighbor from hell, but Jeffrey Dahmer might just be the ultimate example. Dahmer murdered 17 people and even tried turning some into submissive zombies by drilling holes in their skulls and injecting acid into their brains. When police finally raided his apartment in 1991, they found severed heads in the fridge and a human torso dissolved in a vat of acid. The story is revolting in every measurable way, but it's the methodical and lonely nature of his depravity that makes Dahmer such a legendary villain. Unlike many serial killers, he wasn't a raving lunatic or a charismatic con man. He was a solitary and awkward man, committing unspeakable acts in a boring apartment building. Sometimes evil really does live right next door.
Jeff.
Oh, hey.
I gotta say, that smell is worse than ever.
Number 10, Rasputin.
Rasputin was able to do something which physically altered people.
Rah-Rah Rasputin hovers in history as a figure of almost supernatural dread. While not a mass murderer, the Mad Monk was a dirty and unkempt mystic with hypnotic eyes who manipulated the Russian royal family and helped bring down an empire. You could see how his legend has devolved into such outlandish myth. He is perhaps most famous for his legendary refusal to die, poisoned, shot multiple times, beaten, and thrown into a frozen river. Of course, this prolonged death has been largely fabricated throughout the years, but it still speaks to the mythic power that he held over his victims and the country. He represents the terrifying idea of a dark sorcerer pulling the strings of a nation, and this reputation hasn't let up for 100 years.
They prefer to create legend about devil. They gave him cakes, they continue to be still alive, they shot him, they continue to be still alive, and devil returned and tried to kill one of them, but they shot him. 5 men shot the only, not mujik, not peasant, but devil.
Number 9, Albert Fish.
I don't think any of the boys and girls at the party will look half as nice as you. Saying that's not a bad idea. Maybe Grace should accompany me.
The Gray Man. Even his nickname is creepy and gross. Albert Fish looked like everyone's kindly grandfather, which of course made him invisible to his victims. In reality, Fish was a sadomasochist and a cannibal who targeted children during the Great Depression. He is perhaps most famous for writing a polite handwritten letter to the mother of one of his victims, describing in grotesque detail how he killed, prepared, and ultimately ate her child. That level of inhuman cruelty is almost impossible to comprehend. Fish didn't kill for money or anger. He killed for the sheer twisted pleasure of pain, for the fun of it all. He represents the ultimate betrayal of trust, proving that the most innocent-looking amongst us can harbor the most depraved secrets imaginable.
On Sunday, June the 3rd, 1928, we had lunch.
What's the matter with you?
Grace sat in my lap and kissed me.
Didn't get a job I applied for.
I made up my mind to eat her.
Number 8. Talaat Pasha. You know what they say, the pen is mightier than the sword. History sometimes proves it to be true. As the Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire, Talaat Pasha was the architect of the Armenian genocide. He organized the deportation and murder of over 1 million people using the telegraph system, treating human extermination like a simple administrative task. He showed the world that you can commit monstrous acts from behind a desk without ever getting your hands bloody. And it's this ability to physically and emotionally detach himself from the suffering of millions makes him one of the most chilling figures in human history. Operating in the 1910s, Talaat Pasha set the precedent for the modern state-sponsored genocides that would go on to plague much of the 20th century. Number 7. Charles Manson.
All right, on your feet. Let's go. On your feet. Up. Let's go. On your feet. On your feet. You're under arrest, Charlie. For grand theft auto. Okay? Let's go. Let's go.
Hey, why don't you tell me just
come on, let's go.
Hey, and I'll tell some of the girls to be nice to you.
He is the monster that ended the summer of love. It's almost biblical. Charles Manson wasn't a serial killer in the traditional sense, but his crimes were no less terrifying for it. As the charismatic leader of the Manson family, Charles brainwashed young and impressionable hippies into believing his own warped worldviews and culty, pseudo-religious babble. His influence culminated in 1969, when he ordered his followers to brutally butcher 7 people, including pregnant actress Sharon Tate. Manson is a jarring figure in virtually every sense. He was powerful, he looked creepy, and he harbored thoughts of deplorable violence that, even to this day, seem unspeakable. With the carved forehead and empty, hypnotic stare, Charles Manson remains the ultimate symbol of counterculture gone horribly, horribly wrong.
If you don't stop, I'll have to have you removed.
If you don't stop, I'll have you removed. I've got a little system.
Call the next witness.
Do you think I'm kidding?
Number 6. Timur, or Tamerlane. While many conquered for land, this 14th century warlord seemed to conquer for the sheer artistry of death and destruction. Seeking to rebuild the Mongol Empire, Timur left a gruesome signature in his wake: nightmarish towers of skulls. After destroying a city, Timur would order his troops to cement thousands of severed heads into pyramids to serve as a warning to his enemies. In Isfahan alone, he massacred 70,000 people just to make a point. He combined military genius with a theatrical love for violence that few in history have ever matched. Timur's campaigns turned entire regions into graveyards, and he didn't just want to win. He wanted to scare and traumatize the whole world into submission. A tower of severed heads is certainly a good way to do that. Number 5. Leopold II. To the world, Leopold II was a refined monarch. To the Congo, he was the devil himself. Leopold ran the Congo Free State not as a colony, but as his own personal possession, enslaving the population in order to harvest rubber. Roughly 10 million people died under his brutal regime, all so he could funnel profits back to Europe to build palaces. And to prove that they weren't wasting bullets hunting for food, Leopold's soldiers were required to present the severed hands of their victims. Of course, this often led to the mutilation of the living just so the soldiers could meet their ridiculous quotas. Leopold's story is a chilling example of greed overriding humanity. He never set foot in the Congo, yet he caused more suffering than almost anyone in history.
Before the clashes, peaceful protesters climbed the statue to Belgium's colonial king Leopold II, waving the flag of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Number 4. Genghis Khan.
Priests prophesied a coming apocalypse as Mongolian hordes approached the borders of the Holy Roman Empire. The whole continent watched and waited in terror.
The scope of the Mongol Empire is hard to comprehend, but the body count they left behind is even harder. Genghis Khan created the largest contiguous empire in history, but the cost was roughly 40 million lives. His policy was simple: submit or die. If a city resisted, Genghis Khan would simply plow through it, often exterminating every living thing within its walls: men, women, children, even animals. Believe it or not, his wars were so deadly that the global population dropped to such a significant degree that it allowed forests to regrow on the empty farmland. While undeniably a brilliant strategist, the Khan's evil lies in the total annihilation of the opposition. There were no rules, no conventions, no nobility. You submitted or you died.
Drawing from the Book of Revelations, they saw the invaders as the armies of Satan. Their fears would soon be realized.
Number 3, Pol Pot.
So this woman here, for example, she's, what, 70 years old?
I mean, how can there be a spy?
Yeah.
What kind of spy could be this old lady?
In a fanatical bid to reset time to the so-called Year Zero, Pol Pot turned Cambodia into a slaughterhouse. The result was the killing fields, where nearly a quarter of the country's population was wiped out in the span of just 4 years. The scope is simply impossible to comprehend, but the truly scary part was the flippant criteria for death. If you wore glasses, spoke a foreign language, or even if you had soft hands, you were considered an enemy of the state and executed. He turned children against their parents and destroyed the social fabric of an entire nation. His regime proves that ideology, when taken to its absolute extreme, can justify the murder of millions for reasons that seem completely insane to the outside world.
The wind whispers of fear and hate. The war has killed love, Sydney, and those who confess to the anger vanish, and no one dare ask where they go.
Number 2, Joseph Stalin.
Stalin had built an empire on a framework of terror, justifying it in the name of a political faith, and through it he ruled his country, his government, his party, and his family.
The Soviet Union has seen its share of villains, but none quite like Joseph Stalin. Through the inhumane Gulag system, man-made famines like the Holodomor, and the Great Purge, Stalin was personally responsible for the deaths of millions. The body count was ridiculous, but it was the psychological terror that truly set him apart. He often purged his own inner circle, erased people from the history books, and created a paranoid society where children openly denounced their parents. It was said that you could even be murdered for being the first person to stop clapping after a speech. For 30 years, not a single person in the Soviet Union felt safe, making him one of the most terrifying, effective tyrants to ever live.
It was a terrible time. Everyone wanted to destroy everyone else. There were betrayals, denunciations, and such hatred that crossed all normal boundaries.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1, Adolf Hitler.
If we're to wage war on these foreign infiltrators, certain civil rights must be suspended.
At the summit of human cruelty stands the man who turned hatred and death into an industry. While others may have higher death counts, it was Hitler's intent which truly defines the concept of evil. Hitler didn't just kill, he built a vast, complex system of trains, camps, and gas chambers, solely designed to exterminate entire races of people. From starting the most destructive event in history to orchestrating the Holocaust, his legacy is the ultimate nightmare of what happens when cruelty goes unchecked. Hitler utilized modern technology and bureaucracy to commit ancient atrocities, turning genocide into a state project and permanently scarring the human conscience. His very name is synonymous with evil, a morbid benchmark of sorts, to which we compare the other great villains of human history.
You will once again fight for a strong Germany.
Which terrifying individuals did we forget? Let us know in the comments below.